It's time to talk about how I built this beauty. I call him Beastie. All of my Halloween creations end up with a name, probably because I feel like they come to life as I work on them. So this guy's name is a Pirates of the Caribbean reference. I've had the idea of him in my head for a couple of years now, and I finally got around to getting him made this year. Okay, I'm super excited to share with you how I built my friend the Beastie here. And so let's get started. First off, this is a 22-inch cauldron. It's just that basic plastic cauldron you can find at Halloween stores, and I think I found mine online this summer is when I needed it. And I connected it to a table that I just thrifted. But before I connected it, it is screwed in, but I actually drilled holes. So there's like 3 or 4 holes that are drilled through the cauldron, down through the material, down through the table. And the reason I did that is in case there was any rain or moisture or any liquid that needed to drain through the bottom. We don't want to build that up inside because of all the electronics that are going on, and it could just be smelly. Ready? Okay, so one problem we have with a cauldron is that it's round, and the further down you get, the less space you have to work with. So I built the space up to give me a bigger flat surface to work with. Just used a whole bunch of leftover insulation foam board. I have plenty of scraps for that. Then after that, if you want to look in here, my daughter Scout's filming. Thank you, Scout.
You're welcome.
I put a piece of just plywood down. And that is all there is to it. And it's not even cut well, so there's a lot of space around it again, so anything can drain if it needs to. About the guts of this thing. If you look inside, I have 2 wiper motors and 2 builds to make these work. And I'm gonna go into detail on those in just a second. And then in front, I have a reindeer motor. It's hard to see because I've glued on top of it right here to get this little contraption to work. So this is the front motor build from inside the cauldron. Both builds in the cauldron I found on YouTube. Go check out Halstaff's animatronic workshop and then look for his video titled Simple Motorized Halloween Props. He has other ideas on there too that are amazing and super helpful, but that's where I got this build from. I will write his info in the caption. So on this one, I made the mistake of starting with a reindeer motor. The reindeer motors are cheap and easy to find online, however they are not as strong, and after testing it with my hardboard tentacle, it was not strong enough for the weight, so I had to switch out for a wiper motor. I'm really new to the animatronic world, and this was my first go at it, so instead of going to a pick and pull and scavenging a wiper motor, I purchased my motors online from Monster Guts. I also purchased a speed controller from them as well, and I'm really happy I did. The wiper motor they sell has 2 speeds, fast and slow. When you attach the speed controller, there is a little dial and you can turn it up or down and fine tune it to control the speed you want it to be and how you want it to look. Okay, I wanted to show you something I kind of learned for this build. The Monster Guts wiper motor came with these 2 arms. You can pick which one you want to use, and most people use this one. And so I used this one, and I had a screw and nuts and bolts going together and connecting the PVC pipe like this, but it still had, the PVC pipe just still kept bending on me, and it was making all this noise, and at one point it fell off. And so I couldn't sleep and was up thinking about it, and honestly that's where I get most of my ideas. And so I realized that this one was going to do a better job of what I needed. So it has this attached to it, like really well. And so I just figured I needed to get the PVC pipe around it, which is a little tricky because this end is obviously bigger than the stem of it. So what I did is I drilled a hole like this into the PVC pipe, and it's not big enough to get in there. So what I did is I heated this up with a heat gun, and then it became super pliable, and I was able to pop that in, and then I let it cool, and as it cooled, it hardened, and then it wrapped around this part, and then it worked like a dream. Like everything went smoother, it looked better, it sounded better. That was a really good decision to do it, to change it like that. Also, I'm going to point out that you can't have a lot of, I guess you could call it a tail. You need to keep it cut really short on the end that you're not screwing the tentacle to, because otherwise it gets caught. So keep that end short. And you don't even need to screw into the other side because it will just fit right in there, and you're set and you're good to go. So here are all three motors at work. The front one inside the cauldron I just showed you. The one behind it is a rocker mechanism, like for a rocking chair. I found info on how to build it from that same YouTube video I mentioned earlier. I just needed to make it the size I needed and changed a few things here and there, but the mechanism is the same. And then I screwed a piece of PVC pipe to it so I could easily add a tentacle to it. Once I was happy with them, I attached them to the plywood at the bottom of the cauldron with a few screws and Gorilla Glue. So by using 3 different motorized builds here, I got 3 different movements. Even though they are all very similar, the rocking is back and forth, the one in front of it goes back and forth and up and over, and the one in the very front has a circular motion. I felt by keeping them similar, it actually gives them more of a natural look. So now let's talk about the small tentacle attached to the front of the cauldron. So because I had a leftover reindeer motor from the first mistake on that other one, I decided to use it in front. And so what I did is just glued this it's glue and screws put in. Sorry, it's black, it's hard to see. And then it has this little connector. And then I just added these 2 pieces of PVC pipe. And they are, I'll just show you, there's a screw that goes on. Then you want to glue this on with good glue. Hot glue will hold it for a second, but then you need something more substantial to keep that in place. And then when it goes around, it hits these and just kind of does this little movement. I'll show you in just a second. I added these little felt pads because it's what I had handy because they kept clinking, and that resolved that issue. So hold on, let me turn that on.
You're good.
Okay, so here it is in action, and you can see as it hits one, it kind of comes down, and I love that it kind of just goes blah, 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 blah. And then it comes back up and around. And because it's such a small piece of wood, it's super lightweight, and I didn't have any problems at all getting this to spin with the weight of the tentacle attached. Okay, so here it is in action. You can see all I did is just screwed it directly onto that PVC piece of pipe, that small one. And it goes around and kind of has the effect of a, I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
A tentacle.
Yeah. All right. All the mechanics were where I wanted them to be, and I was happy with the movement, so now it was time to make the tentacles. I started with measuring the general size I needed each tentacle to be in order to fit properly in the cauldron. Then I drew a rough outline onto hardboard. I also usually call it masonite. To keep things simple, I would recommend you paint the entire board with a layer of primer, then sketch on it, and then cut it out. It's easier to see your sketch on it. Anyway, after they were drawn on, each tentacle was cut out with a jigsaw. I then attached them to my motor builds to make sure they fit right, and then I didn't need to make any major changes. After I was happy with the cuts, it was finally time to start painting. This is my favorite part. I can see the idea in my head start to really come to life. After I was done painting, it was time to put it all together. Last thing we need to do is get everything inside. And the first piece I put in was this guy right here, the front one. And when I built these, I just had to make sure they were small enough to all be able to fit all of them in. Just to give you an idea, this one looks like it's about 6.5 by 7 inches to fit in there, because I have to fit an entirely different mechanism back here. This is the rocker motor. Then after I had this one in and this one in where I liked them and moving the direction I liked, then I added the other ones. This guy in front is actually just screwed right onto the PVC pipe in the corner. This one I added onto a little piece of wood here that's screwed into this and into the side of the cauldron. Okay, this final back piece is screwed on 3 ways. It's attached to this rocker motor, and then behind it's got a screw on this side that comes through the cauldron into a piece of wood that I've placed on the back, and the same on the other side. I wanted bright neon pink lighting coming up from the cauldron onto the tentacles, and so I opted to get this like neon pink rope lighting. I don't know if it was the best decision ever, but to get it on, what I did is I turned the whole mechanics on so they were moving, and then weaved them around to make sure nothing was pinching, nothing was getting caught, and nothing was causing any problems with all the mechanics down below. I'm happy with the color, kind of not happy with the hot mess in it. I don't know, that might be something I rethink one day. Okay, one more thing is I have cheap disposable Tupperware down in here, and inside each one of those I have those dials that I can control the speed of the motors, and that way it keeps them protected from any rain or other elements. The effect I got with the paint here, just in case anyone wants to know, is I just dabbed black paint on and then silver on top of that, and I had some blue powder I kind of threw on top. I wanted each of the cauldrons to look different. I had this idea in my head that some of them are going to be really old, some of them are going to be really new, somewhere in between. So I didn't want them all to have the same look. So this is my one and only one that looks kind of silver. And there is my beastie. I really want to add unique handles onto this eventually. That's still the plan, but sometimes getting it out and up and going is better than perfect, and that's where I was this year. I also can see the tentacles being made of foam or even pool noodles. For me, painting is a strength and it makes me happy, so that's one reason I went with the hardboard. But there for sure are a lot of other ways of creating the tentacles. Anyway, friends, I'm super thrilled with how this guy turned out, and I'm happy to share with you how I made this crazy idea that was in my head come to life.